Ya. Silakan Bu Ratna, sudah live.
Ladies and gentlemen, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Greeting for all of us. With Bismillahirrahmanirrahim, I declare this dissertation defense is started. This dissertation defense is held to give opportunity to candidate Ruby Hermanto, student ID 390160001, to deliver his dissertation research titled Implementing Key Accounts Management Using Subsystem Methodology as a Change Process Approach, and answer question or defend his dissertation against critic or comment in the session. Candidate has been doing his dissertation under supervision of team as follows: Professor Dr. Insinyur Utomo Sarjono Putro, Engineering from ITB as Chief Promoter, Yos Sunitioso ST Eng PhD from ITB as Co-Promoter, while the examiner in this session are Gatot Yudogo PhD from ITB, Yos Sunitioso PhD from ITB, Dr. Rahma Fitriati from Universitas Indonesia. Ladies and gentlemen, next I will ask to the Chief Promoter, Professor Dr. Insinyur Utomo Sarjono Putro M.Eng, to deliver curriculum vitae of candidate and then to convey academic accountability regarding to the acceptance of this dissertation. To Chief Promoter, time yours, please.
Okay, thank you, Bu Ratna. But before I convey my what is called opening remarks about this promovendus, I will to give revision. The co-promoter is not Dr. Yosunitioso, but the co-promoter is Dr. Santi Novani.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm so sorry. Thank you very much, Prof. Utomo.
Okay, thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, Bu Ratna is the chair of this examination, and Professor Supriyadi is the head of the Sekolah Pasca Sarjana ITB, and promoters, Bu Santi, and examiners, Bu Rahma, Yos, Pak Yos, and Pak Gatot. Thank you very much, and the audience, the participant of this meeting. Thank you very much for attending this examination. Okay, on the CV and the explanation about the promovendus. Promovendus was born in Ankara, Turkey, on 22nd June 1970. Promovendus held a bachelor degree in international relations from Universitas Indonesia in 1994, and master degree in Magister Management from Prastia Mulia in 1996. Today, promovendus has been a doctoral student at Dr. Science Management SBM ITB since 2016. Promovendus has around 25 years of experience with several companies such as IBM, HM Sampurna, Mid Johnson, Abbott Nutritional, XL Axiata, Sampurna Telecom, Smart Friend, Gudang Garam, and Prastia Mulia. Promovendus is currently working as a consultant at Prastia Mulia Executive Learning Institute for the past 8 years. Promovendus has high interest and built his competence in B2B marketing. Key account management, or KAM, is one of the vital pillar of the B2B strategy that Promovendus decided to pick up as his doctoral research topic. Promovendus has identified many companies fail to implement KEM. Therefore, Promovendus seeks a solution to overcome this failure. Promovendus' intellectual journey in Doctor of Science Management SBM-ATB has introduced him to subsystem methodology or SSM. Promovendus became passionate about SSM and convinced that SSM could be the answer to overcome the failures in implementing TAM. SSM is positioned as a change process approach to implement KEM through his research. Using SSM as a methodological research requires Promovendus to aim dual imperative of solving the KEM implementation problem and contributing to the development of SSM as a methodology. Promovendus identified that SSM strength in flexibility is also its weakness. SSM use reiteration and gradual discovery in identifying relevant issues and worldviews. However, such flexibility can be time-consuming and problematic in corporations involving high-rank officers with tight time schedules. With limited time given, an SSM practitioner can fail to surface relevant issues and worldviews in time. SSM result can then become unsatisfactory. To overcome this, Promovendus introduced the 7S framework as an additional tool to use with SSM. Promovendus research has proven the benefit of using the 7S framework. His finding has been published in Q1 Scopus Index Journal, where Cheklan, the father of SSM, has made at least 7 publications in the journal. The dissertation that Promovendus is about to present has been published in Q1 and Q3 Scopus Index Journal as follows. First, in Journal of the Operational Research Society, and the second in the Journal of International Journal of Business Excellence. With the above achievement, Promovendus is worthy of being promoted in this doctoral open examination today. Thank you very much, Bu Ratna. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you, Mr. Chief Promoter. Now, could you please invite candidate to attend to this session?
Very much, Bu Ratna. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you, Mr. Chief Promoter. Now, could you please invite candidate doctor, are you healthy enough to perform a dissertation defense?
Yes, Bu. Thank you for asking.
Candidate, you are given opportunity to present your dissertation research in maximum 20 minutes from now. Time yours, please.
Okay, thank you so much. I'll be sharing the slide now. Okay, bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam.
Greetings and gratitude to Chairwoman, Ibu Profesor Ratna, Promoter Head, Bapak Profesor Utomo, Co-Promoter, Ibu Santi, PhD, Examiner 1, Bapak Gatot, PhD, Examiner 2, Bapak Yos, PhD, and Examiner 3, Ibu Dr. Rahma. Today, I'll be presenting my doctoral dissertation with the title of Implementing Key Account Management using Soft System Methodology as a Change Process Approach. I'm sorry, I'm sharing the wrong slide. Can I change the slide? Oh. Okay. So to start with, I'll be explaining what is key account management. So basically, a company can sell product or services to consumer, making what we call as a B2C transaction, business to consumer transaction. Companies can also sell product or services to another company, making what we call as a B2B transaction. According to Forrester research, B2B transaction is actually twice or double the size of consumer transaction. So therefore, B2B is actually an important market. Now, trying to understand this B2B, a company selling to another company, usually they are selling to not just one, but several companies. And the way they handle such approach is basically, they are doing what we call as traditional sales approach, which is all customer, regardless size, big or small, are treated equally. The product and services are provided similar, regardless who they are. And usually they assign a salesperson handling multiple clients. But then as time goes, B2B relationship becomes more complex. Some of the customers becoming more and more important. Pareto rules applies. 20% customer can generate 80% to total business. Therefore, some customers are very strategic. And the decision making within that company is also complex. Between one company to another company, decision units will be different, supply chain approach will be different. So things are very complex. Even the same company can have several projects with different decision-making units. So therefore, approaching them is very complex. And this customer becoming more and demanding from time to time, especially with competition increasing among seller companies. Therefore, starting the end of 1970s, seller companies started to implement what they call by key account management. So what is actually key account management? Key account management is basically the seller company decided to categorize their customer. Some of their customers are regarded as important customers, called by key account. These customers are very strategic. And then some companies of their customers are actually remain as a regular account, not that strategic. So for this key account customer, usually what they do is that they provide them with special services. They provide a customized product, they provide also a customized services. And usually they also assign a dedicated person to assist the customer for whatever they want. So whatever they need, they can just talk to one person and the company will support in full. So that's the key account management. Now, ever since key account management being introduced, it has been very popular approach among B2B. Today, a lot of scholars acknowledge already that if you talk about B2B, then you need to talk about key account. So key account management becomes the principal part of B2B. And practical-wise, a lot of companies are actually starting to adopt. But then adopting key account is not as easy as we thought. It's not just a matter of changing a sales organization, but you need to change the whole organization. Why? Because as mentioned earlier, they have to customize products, they have to customize services, so the whole organization changed. And a research made by Davis shows that for a company to actually having stable everything in terms of key account, it takes 6 years. Because of this complexity, then the risk of failure is also high, just like other change initiatives. But then there is a research already made investigating this failure regarding to key account implementation and found out that actually the failure is not because they wrongly designed the key account strategy or wrongly structured the organization and system and practices, but it's more actually they are not doing proper approach in terms of changing from traditional sales becoming a key account. So the process of change is not properly managed. But unfortunately, also scholars found out until today, study of how come actually should be processing the change is actually still lacking. So therefore, this dissertation basically is trying to find a way, trying to propose, can we have a proper change process so that come implementation can be more successful. So that is the aim of this research objective. To achieve that, there are 4 research questions. The first question is basically checking first whether COM implementation research is sufficient. Do we have enough research of those? And then secondly, once we know we have enough, the question will be, is there a research gap on COM implementation? Which later on I will show that we found out actually there is a research gap on the process itself, it's confirmed. And this is done through a systematic literature review. And then once we know there is a gap, then the question is that what can we do about it? So basically, this dissertation proposes to use SSM, soft system methodology as a change process approach. Then once we use SSM, the next question arises, do we need additional tools to help SSM in terms of doing the approach? And those 2 questions are being addressed using the soft system methodology as an approach of investigating these 2 questions. Now, what is the novelty of this dissertation? There are 3 novelties. Number 1, this is the first time to actually doing the systematic literature review of COM implementation and actually also find out there is a gap, research gap in there. And secondly, this is also the first actually dissertation that position SSM, not just as a methodology, but as a change process to implement key count. And this is also the first dissertation to also propose that we can actually use 7S framework to assist SSM in supervising worldviews. And those discussions have been actually published on several occasions. Firstly, in 2017, there was a proceeding on a conference in Bali, actually talked this already, the missing framework for managing change process. And then published on mid-June last year on a Q3 publication with the title of The Missing Element in Implementing Key Account with the Journal of International Journal of Business Excellence. It's a Q3 Scopus Index. And then just recently on September the 8th September 2021 this year, also there is another publication, which is the title is Overcoming the Challenge of Those New with SSM in Surfacing Relevant Worldviews for Actions to Improve with the Journal of the Operational Research Society. Now, in regards to the first research question, so are we having sufficient literature? The answer is yes. There are 47 literatures talking about COM implementation, and those literatures are very credible. Almost all of them are published on a Q1 journal. 93% of them, which is 44 out of 47, are published on a Q1. Only 2 of them are published on a Q2. So therefore, it's the literature on COM implementation is abundant and of quality. But then the second question is that, is there a research gap? Using the lenses of change, which is basically Pettigrew and Americanis is saying, if you want to talk about change, then you need to understand from the perspective of content, which is what you want to change, and context, the environment of the change, and then process the how you actually do the change. And those research, the 47 research I mentioned earlier, they are talking about content, they are talking about context, but none of them are talking about process. So there is a research gap. Research gap exists, and that is what this dissertation is trying to actually fill in. Now, this publication, the finding has been published, as I mentioned earlier, on the Q3 International Journal of Business Excellence. Now, in regards of the research gap, there is a missing link. There is a process approach that has not been discussed. So what should we do with it? So this dissertation proposes use SSM, not only as a methodology to investigate, but actually as a vehicle to do a change process. So what is SSM? SSM basically is an action-oriented, organized way to improve a social problematic situation. So it's not just a methodology, but it's an action-oriented to solve social problematic situation, to improve, not to solve. So Jacqueline himself, he's actually the one who firstly introduced this approach, is using a soft system thinking approach to do this improvement of social problematic situation. So what are the main characteristics of SSM? Number one, SSM believes the whole problematic situation that we have in social life is originated by the conflicting worldviews. People have mental models, people have different point of views, and this point of views, if not settled, will create problems. So for us to improve the situation, we need to investigate and find a way to actually accommodate different point of views. And secondly, people are actually acting purposefully. They don't behave unrationally, they don't behave randomly. Everyone is actually doing things purposefully. So therefore, for us to improve a situation, then we need to model this. We need to model how people can actually act and therefore it becomes the way we change the things. And for us to achieve these two things, we need to accommodate. So SSM is talking about accommodation. The essence of SSM is about accommodation. It's not about trying to optimize things, but actually to accommodate things. Now, applying SSM principle to change of implementing CAM, basically there is a case study that was done starting last year, mid of last year. There is a company in Indonesia, an IT company, with 1,300 employees serving 1,000 more customers. They have implemented KeyCon 5 years ago, but failed. They invited a big consultant, international consultant, to help them to actually migrate to KeyCon, but somehow a lot of problem occurs, and therefore they decide to neglect the process. But after 5 years, they decided, no, we don't have any choice, but we have to implement CAM. So they appoint a TSCO CAM task force, and this task force contacted me to assist them to migrate to KeyCon. And they agreed to use SSM. So basically what we did is basically we start understanding the organization, and we decided 18% has to be involved in the whole process of SSM, which is this 18% are actually from CEO, directors, GM, and senior managers, those who are having the power to decide and impacted by this change. So at the start, we start with offline because we are lucky enough at the beginning, COVID was not that intense. We can still do an offline. So we managed to do a rich picture understanding of issues with offline. But later on, everything, the whole process for 4 months was done online. So what was the findings? Everyone agrees through a workshop that the company is facing big issues. There are 61 issues that needs to be resolved. Therefore, they are agreeing they have to change. They have to implement CAM. And once we actually investigate everyone on their worldviews, it found out that they have 30 conflicting worldviews that is required to settle, otherwise they cannot implement KeyCon properly. And after working with them to actually resolve the differences and coming with a great accommodated point of views, then we understand those 30 are actually reflecting to 3 most important objectives they have to achieve. Number one is actually they need to reorganize, reclassify the whole customer classification, and then make a new way to approach them in order to increase share of wallet. Secondly, they need to start a way to increase their knowledge of the industry expertise so they can actually sell higher margin products to customers. And also they need to manage the non-key account customer, the regular account customer, in a way that territory regional team can actually approach them properly. So those 3 are required for us to achieve the main goal, root definition of implementing key account from traditional moving to key account in order to meet the shareholder expectation of doubling sales within 3 years. Now with the root definition very clear, what to achieve very clear, then it's easy for us actually to start working what are the actions needed for us to move to key account. So basically for the first subsystem, to reorganize the customer, reclassify customer, and also reorganize how we treat them. So we have made subsystem 1, and then the way we actually build our expertise on industry, we made subsystem 2, and then the way we actually reorganize the regional, we make subsystem 3, and these 3 are human activity system key actions that we need to take for us to implement CAM. And based on this, then they decided, presented this already to the whole group, and basically the whole process initiated, and the whole process of change was concluded within 4 months. Now, what is the learning of this all? So basically, when we talk about change, then we need to use a frame of reference of the Kurt Lewin. Why Kurt Lewin? Kurt Lewin is regarded the father of whole change management theories, and until today, people are still referring Kurt Lewin as relevant. So what is his thinking? He's saying, if you want to change the whole organization, then you need to understand 4 things. There are 4 pillars. First, you need to modify restraining forces that makes people reluctant to change. Modify this. And secondly, you need to use group pressure to modify those. You cannot do it by individual. You need to do by group pressures. And then you need to do this at the beginning of the whole process by doing unfreezing. Yeah, just like if you want to change an ice cube, you unfreeze the ice, melting it into water, and then you can actually form it and then you refreeze it. So you need to do it at the beginning. And then the whole process you need to do it action research approach, which is participative with learn, action, learn. So that is the 4 pillars of Kurt Lewin. And basically, Kurt Lewin is regarded relevant until today. Every scholars are agreeing, but they are criticizing Kurt Lewin as not too detailed. There is no details on how we do those things that he mentioned. And interestingly, SSM can actually address. So SSM nicely fit to the 4 pillars of Kurt Lewin. Yeah. And what interesting is that if SSM delivers more than what Kurt Lewin is doing. Why? Because SSM recognize there are differences point of view, and we need to address those differences of point of view. Otherwise, when we implement change, people will actually doing things differently or rejecting. So by actually surfacing this and accommodating differences, we can reduce the risk of people actually rejecting. And then also SSM facilitate people to sit together to together decide what are the activities needed for us to change through what we call by human activity system or the modeling approach of SSM. And this compare it with reality and therefore make it things are very realistic. So therefore, using SSM, the receptive of people of actually doing change is becoming higher. And also people are having a sense of ownership of the whole process and making sure if there is some problems, they will resolve it. Why? Because they think this is my effort, this is my doing. Yeah. So this is why we are, I'm recommending that SSM to be used in process implementing change, yeah, with CAM. But however, it is also known that using SSM is not that easy. Yeah, a lot of research shows that people without experience and training on SSM, they will have difficulty using SSM. And many reports also show that a lot of research on SSM actually stops at the early stage of inquiry. They don't move to a solution in terms of action to take. But for those who actually do move to actions to take, the result is actually problematic. It's frustrating and not as expected. So the question is, why is that happening? So what is wrong with that? As I mentioned earlier, when you talk about SSM, the core essence is about worldview. Differences of point of view creates problematic situation. So if you want to improve the situation, you need to surface all differences and make sure they are accommodated. And this is what people are failing. A lot of people are failing to surface relevant worldviews in order to make sure they can design a proper activity. Now, how do you overcome this with SSM? Jacqueline has actually given a solution, which is he introduced this approach. He's saying that when you investigate people for issues and worldviews, it's an ongoing process. It's not something that you do at the beginning and then you don't do it again. It's an ongoing process. So whenever you actually start doing modeling in terms of activities, what you want to do, you may go back to find out again if you find new worldviews or new issues, and then you need to investigate and then remodel it again. And then even once you debate it already and compare it to reality and you see new worldviews, you need to go back again and do the whole thing. So it's an iterative process. We have to do.
Excuse me, candidate, can you please go to the main finding?
Yes,
You have only 5 minutes left. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. So basically with this iteration, having SSM to involve high-ranking officers becoming problematic. The gradual discovery and reiteration is not possible to be done in a working environment. So that's why I'm proposing to use the 7S. The 7S basically helps us to actually investigate misalignment, which then can actually indicate, is there any issues or any worldviews that is actually missing and has not been discussed? Using the 7S framework on the stage of 2, which is understanding issues and also understanding worldviews, can help us actually to surface a lot of worldviews within one single iteration. So we don't have to do reiterations. In the case study, we found out immediately only using one round, we can investigate 30 different worldviews that needs to be settled, otherwise the key count cannot be implemented. So the 7S is proven effective. Therefore, this dissertation proposes for anyone to actually use SSM, those who are new and they have a time constraint time, they don't have luxury to do iterations, 7S framework can actually help. So this finding has been published on the Q1 journal, on the basically the Journal of Operational Research Society. This is a very important journal. Why? Because Jacqueline, the founder of SSM himself, has been publishing several times on this journal, and this is regarded the highest journal that Jacqueline has been actually publishing. So having this accepted in this journal is very important, that actually the critics to SSM is acceptable and therefore can be used as a future people to actually do working with SSM. So what is the concluding remark? So basically, this dissertation has these conclusions. Number one, there is a research gap in CAM implementation. Number two, for us to actually close the gap, we can use SSM. And SSM is very beautiful. Not only it complies to Kurt Lewin and detailing what Kurt Lewin is saying, but even more, actually providing a vehicle for us to understand the conflicting worldviews and see an accommodative way to actually improve, and also basically participate people to develop action, and therefore making people more owner of the change, having more ownership of the change. And then the iteration that is becoming problematic to some people with SSM can be addressed by using the 7S framework. So therefore, for future research, I'm suggesting that actually we can investigate further SSM to use to under other change situation other than implementing kick count, because I feel that this SSM can be used on other change situation. And number two, it is also for others to actually to do an investigation using the 7S element under different SSM interventions. So basically, that's the concluding remark. Thank you so much for the time and your attention. Morning.
Thank you very much to candidate. Ladies and gentlemen, this session is continued with a different session. Question and answer were conducted interactively, but within a predetermined maximum time frame. That is, for each examiner, it was 20 minutes, while for the advisory team or promoter team, 10 minutes for each. Given that this dissertation event is open to the public, ethics in questioning and answering must be a concern. First, I would like to ask the examiner, Dr. Rahma Fitriati from Universitas Indonesia, to proceed. Time yours, please.
Thank you, Professor Ratna. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I would like to thank SBM ITB and SPS ITB to my sensei, Prof. Utomo, who has really inspired me to continue to hone my intellectual capacity. Congratulations on the achievement of Mr. Ruby Hermanto to become a Doctor of Management Science at SBM ITB. Because time is limited, only 20 minutes, right? I expect doctoral candidates to be able to answer briefly, concisely, and clearly. I have many questions. First question, Pak Ruby, why you use the 7S framework to challenge SSM? The model was developed in the late 1970s by Tom Peters and Robert Waterman, former consultant at McKinsey & Company. Because there are other approaches, such as the review, whose stages can be apple to compare with SSM. What novelties are proposed by combining the 7S framework with SSM? In what kind of complex situation do we need to combine the 7S framework and SSMs? Please.
Okay, thank you. Allow me to share a slide so that I can explain properly. Thank you, Bu Rahma, for the question. So basically, 7S. Why 7S? Why not other methodology? I think firstly that we need to basically agree is that the 7S is being used not to replace any processes within SSM. So 7S is not about being equal or not to SSM. 7S is more to actually as a patching. There is a loophole that we need to patch. So what is that? What I'm trying to say? So basically what 7S is actually doing, what is introduced by the scholars of McKinsey, they are saying that a lot of organizations are failing to achieve the optimum simply because they are not aligned in terms of the 7 elements. The 7 elements, yeah, for instance, let me just put it this way, an example. A company having a good strategy and they have a very good team, very intelligent people, cannot do anything if the strategy and the people is not aligned. If the strategy is excellent, but somehow the system of remuneration is actually not supporting that, not aligned, then it's not going to go anywhere. So basically, for a company or organization to reach its potential, they have to align the whole thing. So, and this is what is beauty about the 7S. So using the 7S, it can help us actually to investigate the missing point of SSM. So basically with 7S, we have a lot of checklists regarding strategy, structure, system, shared values, styles, stuff and skills that we can use as a checklist when we do enter SSM. So as I mentioned earlier, we do this at the stage of 2 and 3 of SSM. So let me just show you the process here. So basically what I'm doing is that, is listen. So using the 7S, before we enter the situation, which is stage 1 of SSM, actually we already use it as a framework by doing a desk research. So in the case of the case study of the ESCO, I'm asking them to provide me with all strategic documents, yeah, RTPP, and also other strategic documents, organization structure, everything. And based on that, I do a study to see if there is a gap that can actually indicate an issue within the account. And this helps me when I'm doing an in-depth interview. So when I'm doing an in-depth interview to investigate any issues, then I'm guided already with some in my mind already, what are the things that I should be asking. So this helps me to actually surface a lot of issues. Yeah. And then, and this also helps when we do rich picture. So when we start to having people to do rich picture, the 7S can be actually something that guided me to actually investigate and ask them, probe them, whether they have sufficiently actually talked all of the issues. So issues can be easily surfaced because using of the 7S. Also, when we do in terms of sorry, let me just show you this. When we do about the worldviews, yeah, 7S can also help. Why? Because when we show this picture to this person, yeah, and start to interview them and asking whether they what they think about those issues, and then people are starting to mention something, and then they think what they see as a worldview, and then they think what is the transformation required, then I can use the 7S to actually investigate. If that person is talking about strategy, then I will actually have to think, is there any worldview on stuff that require alignment? Is there any worldview on system and so on and so forth? So this helps me to actually find out more worldviews to investigate. And based on this, therefore, with this, the novelty that I'm providing is actually, now that SSM, initially we have to do a lot of iterations, go back and forth, yeah? Or once we do a later stage and then we go back again for issue finding and worldview, we don't have to do that. Because with a single sweep, we can extract as much as possible issues and extract as much as possible worldviews. And therefore, the success of SSM become higher and increasing. I think that's the novelty that I'm actually proposing. And this approach has been regarded as very useful. A lot of scholars are saying 7S is actually very good in terms of assessing organization. And therefore, I'm using this as a tool.
Okay, Pak Rudi. Second question. The methodology is designed to answer research question. Which research question requires combining the 7S framework and SSM? And why should this research question be answered by combining the 7S framework and SSM? Link with implementation research reference on PEM. Please, Pak Rudi.
Okay, thank you for the question. Let me just I have several slides here that I can actually share. Basically, go to answer you. This has to do with this slide. Let me just see. Okay, what is very important about SSM is that SSM is an action research. And scholar of McKay and Marshall has noted in 2001, highlighting, if you want to make sure SSM is an action research, make sure you are not only solving a problem, but you are actually doing a methodological also investigation. So that is the essence of SSM. So then in that case, despite originally the purpose of using SSM is actually to find basically this part, which is RQ3, trying to find a way so that we have a process to implement change, which is a problem solving for the company who wants to implement CAM. But SSM also mandates us to do a dual imperative of the other objective, which is what is your theoretical contribution to the methodology itself? And that becomes the research question 4. And this is actually coming from my experience. So before I do the investigation to the ESCO, actually I did also already a SSM approach to another company. And I find it very difficult and very challenging for me, very new. So therefore I have this research question, which is having everything time constrained. How can we actually get a proper extraction of what do you call it, the worldview and issues? And this is therefore the reason why I have this RQ4, research question 4, is simply because I'm upholding the SSM as being a dual imperative, and therefore it's part of the finding as well.
Which research questions are of research interest and which are problem solving, considering you are not a consultant?
Okay, so basically, research question. Let me just show you the research question. I think it's here. So these are the research questions. Basically, RQ3 is the problem solving. This is something. RQ3, research question 3 is the problem solving. Okay. Yes, is the problem solving. And the RQ4 is basically the methodological interest. How can actually do a contribution to improve the methodology.
Okay. And why you use 5 risk picture is very interesting for us. Why you use 5 risk picture to produce the final revision. Do this 5 risk picture affect the risk picture final, or without using 5 risk picture will not produce the final risk picture as it has been made? Why? Whether this can enrich the cultural stream of analysis. Please, Pak Ruby.
Okay, let me share you the stream of that hopefully can respond to your question. So rich picture, yes, it's true. In the dissertation, you will notice there are 5 rich pictures before we have it agreed, accommodated final rich picture. So how is that possible? So basically, the reason why we have 5 versions of rich picture, because there was a workshop. So after I'm doing interview to every single of them, I invite them to gather in a room and then divided them into groups and then ask them to, after teaching them how to actually do a rich picture, ask them to construct their version of rich picture. Every single person has a chance to actually find out what they think as issues, and they start drawing the rich picture. Because of that, then basically we have 5 versions of rich picture. The question is, why am I doing that? Now, I've put some slides here. Let me just start with what you're asking, the cultural stream of analysis. So basically, if you talk about SSM, there are 2 main processes within SSM. The logical-based stream analysis. This is where you build human activity modeling and so on and so forth. And then there is a cultural stream analysis. So basically, this is where you investigate for social and political. So why is actually Jacqueline introduced this? Yeah, because in the past, when he firstly introduced SSM, he didn't talk about this, but later on, he put this. Yeah, why is it? Because he was under criticized by Michael Jackson. Michael Jackson is saying, SSM, you are only doing investigation, but you are not doing the critical approach. Yeah, so therefore, starting that point, SSM is introducing what he called by the cultural stream analysis, which allow people, when they investigate, seek for social and political system, and therefore can help us actually to finalize the what is making a human activity system which is desirable and also feasible. Now, so this is actually the reason why for us to actually to do a cultural stream, and this cultural stream, what is Jacqueline is highlighting, has to be collaborative. So therefore, when we do the rich picture here, I'm intentionally, because we have 18 people, which is a large group, it's very difficult for me to actually having them to actually draw together at the same time. So that's why I'm allowing them to draw by themselves and then make them to actually come with what they think is right, and then we allow them to present. So every single of them, after drawing, they will present and everyone will discuss, and based on that, we have a common agreement what is the final picture. So this process will help us actually to involve people. And involving people is very important. Why? Because let's say Peter Senge, for instance. Peter Senge is very, is the guru of, one of the guru of system thinking. He's saying, the most crucial part of organization when they want to change is actually to make people moving from comfort zone to discomfort. And this has to be done at the initiating stage, where people are changing from, we don't have time to do this stuff, they becoming think, yes, we have to do it. And therefore, to have this achieved, we need to involve people, and therefore we need to have an approach that make people actually involved in the design of issues that they becoming discomfort, and therefore they want to change. And this is also in line with Kurt Lewin, as I mentioned earlier. Kurt Lewin is saying, when you want to change, then you need to make sure you unfreeze them. And to unfreeze them, you need to involve them because you need to participate. So therefore, this is the approach why we have to do this approach. So rich picture cannot be done by an essential me, for instance, in this case, yeah, doing myself by myself. No, cannot. I have to do with them. I have to allow them to make it so that they can feel we have an issue. And they feel it's them who actually acknowledge the issue, it's them who surface it. So therefore, they are willing to change. And this is very important and crucial in the stage of changing. Because I think another scholar here is saying 50% of change failure is because you are failing to get the sense of urgency to change at the beginning. Yeah. And this is why we have to make sure this is happening. So I think that's the reason why I'm doing this approach.
Okay, last question. What are the proposed changes to reality as a result of learning with SSM and the 7S framework with reference to implementation research on KEM? What theory revision or new theories resulted from your research? How do the original framework compare and the revision of those frameworks as a result of learning with SSM and the 7S framework? Thank you, Prof. Ratna.
Thank you, Bu Rahma. Okay, thank you, Bu Rahma, for asking. So let me just share you the slide that I presented earlier. The question is in regards to 7S used on the total SSM. Yeah. So let me be clear. Yeah, the 7S is only used during the early stage of investigation. So we use 7S only to assist us to do investigation. That is to find out what are the issues and to find out what are the worldviews that are conflicting that needs to be settled. The 7S is a checklist that helps us actually to do this process, because the problem with SSM is actually it is very clear methodological that what you do and what you don't in terms of step 2 and step 3, but then there is no guarantee for us to ensure that we have extracted sufficient knowledge in terms of issues and in terms of worldviews, and therefore the 7S will help us. So it is a vehicle to help us to actually extract more on issues and worldviews. So using 7S stops here. We no longer use 7S on the step 4. We no longer use it on step 5. So therefore, when we compare with reality, we no longer use it, because what we use comparing is only the modeling with reality. So therefore, in that sense, 7S is used only to surface worldview and issues, and not used for us to investigate in terms of comparing with reality. I think that's the answer. Hopefully, it's satisfaction to your question.
Thank you, Prof. Ratna. Enough for me.
Thank you to Dr. Rahma. And then we invite the second examiner, Mr. Yos Sunityoso, PhD from ITB. Time yours, please.
Okay, thank you, Ibu Ratna, the chair. congratulations, Pak Ruby, you get to this stage for your studies, yeah, on the doctoral degree. So I follow up question from Bu Rahma, but I go back a bit on for the benefit of those who are not familiar with SSM, yeah, the audience as well. So your focus is on key account management here, and you use SSM approach, yeah, for this. And basically, what would be the difference if you are not using SSM with using SSM in terms of the solutions of your problem here that you present? And that my first question. You can respond first, and I'll continue with the next one. Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you so much. Let me share you the screen that I have already presented. Now, normally, when people want to change organization, they will use the standard approach introduced by many scholars in terms of change management. So that's the normal way actually you change. That's the change process that people use. And all of the modern theory on change theories are actually rooted to Kurt Lewin. Kurt Lewin is the father of the whole modern theories on change. So you name it, you're talking about change leadership, you're talking about Haber and so on and so forth. Every theories are rooted to him. Yeah, Atkar as well is rooted to Lewin. So we can easily choose either to implement, to use it as a tool to change. But then, since they are actually having the same guru, they are having Kurt Lewin as the guru, all of them are actually addressing these 4 pillars of Kurt Lewin, yeah, which is basically, this. So everyone is actually doing this. It's just a matter of they saying it differently, and they have a different processes or more detailed, but all of them are actually focusing on these stages. Yeah. So everyone is talking about increasing, phase, and increasing. So what is beautiful about SSM actually, not only we address this, because SSM complies to the whole pillars of Kurt Lewin, as I mentioned here, complies to the whole Kurt Lewin, which is number 1. SSM complies to field theory by mapping forces at play, because the requirement of Kurt Lewin saying, if you want to change, you need to identify forces that restrain people to change, and those understanding, we use it with SSM to debate, to find an accommodative approach through groups. Yeah, so we cannot change individual one, but we have to do a group, because then it will create group pressure for people to accept. Yeah, so that is being done also by SSM. And also, we need to do it at the beginning phase. We cannot do it later. We have to do it before we start the whole thing, which is the unfreezing stage. And we are doing that with Reed Picture, with SSM. So we comply with the 3-step change model of Kurt Lewin. And also, Kurt Lewin saying, you need to do it with a participative approach to make sure they own the whole process, and a learn, action, learn cycle, which is action research. And SSM is an action research doing the whole thing as what Kurt Lewin dictated. So basically, SSM is comparable with any other change approach in the sense. But what is different and beautiful about SSM, it goes beyond. It goes beyond than Kurt Lewin prescription. Why? Because SSM believes a lot of problematic situation is actually because people are thinking differently on the same situation. Let's just go an example, a very simple example. Pangeran Diponegoro, people in Indonesia at the past, during his time, will believe Pangeran Diponegoro is a hero who saved people. But the same facts of people, which is Pangeran Diponegoro, is seen differently by the Dutch people. Why? Because he sees Pangeran Diponegoro as a terrorist or extremist. So it's the same people, it's the same Pangeran Diponegoro, but it's seen differently. Why? Because people have different point of views. And this different point of views in the modern age in a company can be problematic. The same company regulation can be seen differently by different people, and people act differently. And that becomes the problem. So SSM helps us actually to extract those, understand what are those differences, and try to see in an accommodative way that people can actually live with. And then also, SSM helps us to work together with people to detailing actions to take based on the worldview that is already accommodated among people. So therefore, with SSM, ownership is higher. So if you're asking what is the difference between using SSM or not, with SSM, you will have more people engaged with the change. You will have people more having a sense of belonging of the change. Therefore, the success rate of change is increasing, because a lot of failure and change is simply because people are not supporting to change. And this is how SSM can actually help better. So I think that is why SSM is recommended to use as a change vehicle.
Right. Okay. One keyword that you mentioned is about accommodating different views. Yeah.
Yes,
In your case, you use the 7S, yeah, to extract those different worldviews, yeah, and you end up with 30 worldviews, yeah, which are conflicting to each other, and well, with your process, you can get 3 sets of goals, like accommodating those worldviews. Is that right? Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So I think if you see in any business or management situation, you face that, yeah, because a different person will have different worldviews, and this approach of SSM will facilitate the accommodating process, as I understand from you. So can you tell us, yeah, what is the key, yeah, for the researcher, for those involved in the process, to get those the views of others can be accepted, so that everyone will agree with the in your case the rich picture, yeah, agreed by everyone, or the goals are agreed for everyone, because it is a very complex process, and I think there are a lot of challenges that you face. Maybe you can share your experience in doing that.
Okay, thank you. I think I prefer to go with Teclan first, because Teclan actually have already given us a guide on that. So let me just open the slide on that one. Which is this slide. Because the beauty of Teclan is basically he's clear with the methodology. So he's clear with the guidelines, despite we are flexible to actually do how we do it. But as long as we are complying to his guidance, then we are still within his SSN. So what is his guidance in terms of accommodation? So your question is actually asking how to accommodate people with different point of views. And this is the slide, actually, the chart that Teclan is trying to actually explain. So when we found out there is a lot of different point of views, the question is how to make sure that people actually can accept. Teclan is highlighting, we cannot change people's view by making or eliminating or making it gone the views that are actually different, but what we can do is actually to make sure that everyone can live with. Everyone can live with, meaning that their point of view may still be different, but they can accept the other point of view and live with it. So I think that's the essence. Yeah? On some cases, yes, you might have a consensus. That is what Teclan is saying. But this is very occasional. This is not something that will happen a lot. Consensus meaning everyone is agreeing, saying, yes, this is it. This is the thing that we are saying. So without any rejection. So it is possible, but that's not the aim, because it's something that can happen, but it's not really the aim. The aim is basically for us to agree that something we can live with. So therefore, it can be compromised, meaning that it becomes something different that is not originally what everyone is actually saying, but it can be also yielding to a certain position. So for instance, there is an A and B position, it can go to A and everyone accepting A. Yeah? So it can be that. So what is the just to that? The just to that is actually to explore. So those point of views, we need to extract what is the transformation that is accompanying to that worldview. So they believe that this is the point of view, and therefore we need to do this. Yeah? We extract those, and then we see what is the consequences if we do that. And this is something that we debate. So we sit together, understanding each point of views, and then each transformation, and then see what is the consequences of each. And then we will take whichever consequences that everyone can live with. And therefore we select that one. So seeking accommodation is actually exploring possible changes and making sure we pick up the one that everyone can accept with the consequences. So that's how we actually decide the accommodation.
Okay. Yeah, I think the point that you mentioned about whether it's everyone can live with differences and can be in terms of compromising consensus or yielding positions there. But this can only happen when those people are discussing or communicating, right?
Yeah.
In the situation where not all parties agree with that, what was the recommendation? Because this is the participative model where everyone are participating in the process, but at the end, if there is a deadlock or there is no way that everyone can agree with what is discussed, what is the the consensus. Maybe the consensus cannot happen.
I think in this sense,
What would be
yes, thank you, Pak, for asking. I think we just go back to what Kurt Lewin earlier saying. If you remember, Kurt Lewin having 4 pillars. You need to take the restraining forces, and then you need to have by group decision. So the essence of having an accommodative agreement is actually through debate and discussion. So I think Kaplan is very crucial saying that we need to debate and we need to discuss.
Right.
I think Indonesia sense is more discussion. Yeah. By doing this, then we can have group pressure. For those who are still against, they can accept because majority is actually agreeing. So the group pressure will play the role to make sure that people are accepting. So I think that's the way, Pak. There's no other way but actually through discussion.
right? Debate discussion, yeah. Okay, maybe last one, but is more is minor one. Yeah, I'm just curious on why the first research question, second and the first and the second research question deserve to be a research question. Basically, because that's your process of getting into the third and the fourth research question, right? Where you are understanding what is the implementation and where is the research gap, right? Well, this is a minor one, but it is more on your structuring. But I don't know, maybe you have particular reasons of putting that as a research question.
Yes, Pak. It's simply because it gives us the justification to do this research, the main research. Because without that, then people will be asking, why are you investigating come implementation? So that's why we do, I did a systematic literature review to prove there is a research gap. Despite people are talking there is a gap, but they don't prove it. And this is how I prove it. And that's why it's published already in Q3.
Yeah, indeed. That's the thing that yeah, your publication was on the missing link, right? The missing elements of the where you find it in your research gap actually, yeah. But the answer of your problem is coming from the third and the fourth research question. That's why better to put emphasis on the last two. Yeah. I think that's all from me, Chair. Thank you, Pak Ruby, for your answer.
Thank you, Pak Yos.
Thank you, Pak Yos. And then we invite the third examiner, Bapak Gatot Yudoko, PhD. Time yours, please.
Okay, thank you, Ibu Ratna, the chairperson. Okay, Pak Ruby, I will begin my first question. Yeah, so I would like to ask your maybe comment, yeah, regarding fair, objective, and critical assessment, yeah, about, this is the classical one, about paradigm war, yeah, between the systematic hard science against the systemic soft system thinking or approach, yeah. I think in your case, yeah, I think you have been able, yeah, outlining very comprehensive, yeah, content of KAM, yeah, key economy, yeah. So I have very good review, yeah. So actually we know like the domain, yeah, the concern on the content of KAM, yeah. So also you have providing the context, yeah, but you criticize about the limitation on the gaps on the process, yeah. Okay. To be objective, yeah, I would like to ask you, yeah, your comment, yeah. How do you compare and contrast in terms of the strength, yeah, as well as maybe limitation, yeah, between those who may believe that the systematic hard science can also be implemented, yeah, on this key AM account, yeah, and then you have also your own, yeah, so have been presenting on your result, but I do believe there are also some maybe limitation from yours, yeah. Okay, what is your comment?
Okay, thank you Pak, for asking, Pak. Allow me to share a slide, yeah, because I need to continue referring to Jacqueline, yeah,
Yes, okay.
for answer, because Jacqueline provide us with the answers already.
Okay.
So Jacqueline is describing how the difference between hard and soft with this picture, yeah. So hard system, hard approach, believe that the world consists of systems, and if you want to solve their problem, we need to optimize this. We need to optimize by modeling the system, and therefore we have what we call as operational research. Model the system to seek optimum. Yeah, so it's an optimization paradigm. While some systems believe problem is actually rooted from what people see and what people believe and what people think. So people have different point of views, and this different point of views needs to be extracted and find an accommodative approach so that people can accept the change, yeah, in terms of how we make things improve. So I think that's the approach. So the modeling of hard system is on the physical world. We model it, yeah. Well, in soft system, we model the inquiry process. We model the set of activities for us to improve based on differences that has been accommodated. So I think that's the main difference. So in terms of the account, can we use hard system to implement with the account? The answer is no, we cannot. Why? Because the biggest issue with key account failure is more to with people actually supporting the change. Why people are actually not supporting the change? Because they have different agendas. And hard system cannot extract these agendas and therefore cannot find an optimal solution. Therefore, we need to use a soft system which we go down, go deep to the brain of each people and extract what they think of the issues, extract what they think is right, extract what they think we should do, and based on that, try to have these differences discussed and agreed on accommodative that everyone can live with, and then we start to implement. So therefore, the success of key account can only be done with soft system, cannot be done with hard system. I think that's the reason why I select the SSN part.
Okay, Ruby, could you go more into detail, yeah, especially about maybe the limitation, yeah, of adopting the systematic hard science, yeah, about the optimization, yeah. So I think this on your research exercise. Yeah. I'll give you an example. You know, Kaplan and Norton's balance scorecard or strategy map.
Yes, Pak.
Okay, yeah. So I think that is also another alternative framework of optimization, yeah. Okay, yeah. The goal is very clear, yeah. We would like maybe, yeah, to increase the revenue, yeah, from the B2B, yeah, something like that, yeah. And then also we are able, yeah, based on your comprehensive review on the content, yeah, I think we are able to define the business value proposition. Yeah, we are dealing with those priority business customer. Yeah, so we do know their value proposition. Yeah, and then in order to deliver that value proposition in any company, they will have resources, yeah, and then business processes, as well as their unique capabilities. That is the logic of strategy map, yeah, optimization, yeah. Okay. In this case, you argue that is not enough, yeah, even maybe insufficient, yeah. So I would like to challenge you more deeper, yeah. if we follow that kind of thinking, what are your critics? What are the limitations that those cannot be working effectively in the context of key account management? Your response, Pak Ruby.
Thank you, Pak, for asking, Pak. I think there are several things that I need to align with Bapak first. Yeah. Number one, when we talk about hard system, we are talking about modeling
Yes.
the world to find an optimum. And then when we talk about soft system, we model the thinking. Yeah. So in terms of what Kaplan and Norton is introducing, he's not modeling the world, but he's actually introducing the way to measure. Yeah, it applies to both actually. It's about measuring. Yeah, so it's about measuring, but then there is a connectivity of system in terms of this will lead to this and that. Yeah, because of the causal effect. Yeah, so and that is the approach. Yeah, which is causal effect. In that sense, it's a system. Yes, but it doesn't mean whether it's hard or soft. Yeah, but the second thing that I need to highlight. The biggest issue with hard system, why we cannot actually easily use in a social problematic situation, which in the case of an organization is actually social, is that if you want to optimize, we need to know what is the goal, right? Because optimization is about goal seeking.
Yes.
And secondly, is highlighting in a problematic situation, defining which to goal to achieve is already problematic because every single person has their goal in their mind. Because people, what Jacqueline believes, is acting purposefully. Everyone has their own goal. And their goal may be different what the company is actually declaring because everyone has their own. Yeah, they are doing purposefully. So Jacqueline is saying, if we neglect those differences and we just use the company goal, which is actually the goal of those who are in power, and neglecting the other goals of the other people, then we are doomed to failure. So therefore, SSM, basically the beauty of SSM actually acknowledge that people have different goals and we need to accept them and align them, making sure that we have a common C, which is accommodating, yeah, and therefore we can actually improve after that. Before we align this, then we will have problem because people will behave differently. Despite you have a goal, the people may not be doing that. Of course, Kaplan and Norton is saying you need to put it as an KPI because people are performing based on what they get as money. That's true, but it doesn't really solve in terms of the achieving what the company wants because we are talking about human nature and people can easily, for instance, resign or they can easily they can actually boycott or they can actually do distraction because they are in disagreement. So that's why soft system actually go to people's mind and try to solve this and making sure people can accept. So therefore, I think that's the beauty of soft system compared to hard system. Hard system is good for anything that's simple, which is very goal-seeking approach. For instance, how to optimize the output of a production. Yes, you can do. How to make sure that we have a good queuing. Yeah, yes, you can do it. But in terms of complex situation, where people have their own minds and people actually can influence, we need to use soft system to extract those differences and try to accommodate them into something that everyone can live with. I think that's the essence.
Okay, thank you, Pak Ruby. Yeah. Now I'm going to the second questions. Yeah, about the change approach model of Kurt Lewin. Yeah, that you have been adopting. Yeah. That in your literature review, yeah, this model is very well known. Yeah, there are many other derivative models. Yeah, it means that it has many advantages. Yeah, but also you provide some critiques. Yeah, to this model. Yeah, in the context of your action research. Yeah, so what is your critiques to what the Kurt Lewin model, and then what kind of adjustment that do you propose?
Thank you. So, Kurt Lewin, let me just show you the slide on Kurt Lewin. Okay, this is the slide that I shared already. So let me just highlight this slide. Okay, Kurt Lewin basically has 4 pillars that people acknowledge as something that we can still use today. So I think that's the strength point of it. His approach is long-lasting. We can still use. First, Kurt Lewin believes that there is a quasi-equilibrium, that's what he calls, something that makes people stay as is. They don't want to change because there is a quasi-equilibrium between restraining force and driving force. The restraining and driving force makes people stay as is. So if we want to change if we want to change them into moving into a new situation, changing it, then research proved by Kurt Lewin, driving force will not help as long as restraining force is there. So you need to actually take out the restraining force, then people can actually move. So I think that's the essence of field theory. Yeah. And then to take out these driving forces, the restraining forces, you need to do at group level through discussion, making sure there is a pressure group, because individually you might still have a different point of view, but if the group is actually saying this, you are tending to comply to what the group is saying because you still want to become the member of the group. I think that's the group dynamics. And Kurt Lewin is saying you need to do this at the beginning stage of change, on the unfazing stage, and you need to participate on the whole process. I think that's the essence of Kurt Lewin. Now, the critics on Kurt Lewin is simply what people already acknowledge. It's missing specific details. Conceptually wise, it makes sense. It's very clear. But the question is, okay, I want to take out the restraining forces. How? Kurt Lewin is not actually telling us how. So philosophical wise, it's clear, but how to do it, the detailed things that we need to do is not there. And this is why a lot of scholars are actually trying to make this guidance on how, yeah. So you have this a lot of scholars actually trying to do it. It's actually detailing. So that's why he's the father of change, because everyone's actually referring to his theories and then try to make their own, that detailing. But the biggest issue, if you notice about Kurt Lewin, the biggest issue, yeah, he's only talking about melting the ice. He doesn't really talk about other things. So that is actually the weakness. And that's why SSM, what is very interesting about SSM also acknowledge, once you put them accepting to the change, they still have different point of view. And this different point of view, you need to accommodate. And that is not being discussed by Kurt Lewin. Kurt Lewin is missing that point. And this is what SSM can actually contribute. By extracting different point of view, it helps actually in the longer run to make sure, number one, people are actually feeling they are accommodated, their voice is being heard out and being considered, despite at the end maybe it's not taking what they think, but at least they know they have voice out and they have been taken into consideration, and the decision is something they can accept together. So I think that's the beauty of SSM, using that detail, yeah, having the extraction of the point of view. And then number two, SSM also facilitate through the development of human activity system, the modeling of activities to do, which involve everyone and everyone involved. And then together, they are also benchmarking with reality and then see what is feasible and what is desirable. So by doing this, whatever decided is something that we can implement. So this is something that Kurt Lewin is not talking also. So on that base, Kurt Lewin is beautiful in terms of giving us the logic, how to approach to change, but more to actually on the unfazing part. But beyond than that, Kurt Lewin is not contributing too much. Yeah, he's saying that we need to do action, learning, and participative, but not in details. Yeah, he said action research is it. But then we need a methodology to become more clear, and SSM actually is filling the gap. And that's why I'm recommending actually SSM having the heart of soul of Kurt Lewin, but with better details and actually giving us more in terms of what to do beyond than just conditioning people to be ready for change. I think that's the point.
Okay, thank you. Okay, my last question. Pak Ruby, could you show me again the last slide, yeah, about your conclusion, yeah? I would like to comment on the maybe conclusion number 3, if I were not mistaken.
Number 3.
Still.
Hold on, Pak. My computer suddenly goes blank. I think it requires a few seconds to.
Yeah, still loading that.
Yeah. Now it's up. Is it already on?
Yeah, it's
Okay.
clear.
Alright. Okay. Thank you, Pak. Yes, Pak. The third question, Pak.
Okay. The third one, yeah. Okay. This is in terms of the utility, the benefits of your action research, yeah, for practitioners, for practitioners, Okay. From function number 3, yeah. Are you saying, or are you proposing that the result from your research, can be, quote unquote, formulated into what I call, quote unquote, prescription atau prescriptive or not? This is my challenge. If you argue that this eventually can also lead to prescription, and then is that not similar with the hard science approach?
Yes.
Okay. Your comment, Pak Ruby.
Yes, Pak. Prescription is just a word to actually stress, the benefit of it, Pak. So what I'm saying is that Kurtwin believes that the reason of failure of change is actually people are resisting to change. So that's why he do these 4 pillars basically to counter the rejection of these people. The people are not actually accepting to change. So that's why they have these 4 pillars. But what SSM is doing is not only handling those 4, but actually giving us a detail, a prescription, what I call, in terms of steps that you need to do to go beyond than that, to go beyond than just taking out the reducing the resistance to change, but becoming more actually accepting and owning the whole process. So it becomes more important because this is nothing more beautiful. You have people taking out the resistance, it doesn't guarantee they will continue support. But if you make people own the change because they believe this is my idea, because this is my contribution, then if they have a problem later on, they will fight to overcome it because they think this is mine. This is my change. So I think that's what I say. This is a prescription because it's like a doctor. It solves the problem of people who want to do change, not only by taking out the resistance, but also making them owning it, and this is more beautiful. So I think that's why I'm putting the word prescription, because it's like it's a curing. It's like curing the issue of people having the problem with change. They manage to have it done, but then people are not supporting later on, and this is something that we need to overcome. And SSM actually help, and it's a continuous cycle. So when we started the CAM implementation, it doesn't mean the cycle stops. The customer, which is the client that actually doing the key account, they continue doing it. So until today, I'm still having discussion with them, reviewing the whole process and taking actions to do. So it's a continuous cycle. So despite the research is done, but I'm still helping them to actually continue with the process of, because it's going to be 6-year process to stabilize. So I'm continue doing that learning cycle with them, and they believe it's mine, and they continue to fight for it.
Okay. Thank you, Pak Ruby. Thank you, Ibu Ratna.
Thank you, Pak Gatot. Ladies and gentlemen, then we go to the next session, question and answer with promoter team, so that we invite Mrs. Santi Novani, PhD, to convey your question, please.
Okay, thank you very much, Bu Ratna, as a chairwoman, and warm greetings to all of the ladies and gentlemen, and also Bapak Ibu yang saya hormati. First, I would like to congratulate the Profendus Pak Ruby for an excellent achievement. It's a long journey, but I think it is very interesting and also a good topic. Your dissertations shows that I think the system thinking approach of the soft system methodology as a change process for the key implementation account management that takes the systemic measures to make the change action. So I think it is very valuable, yeah, for the company.
Thank you.
So I have 2 questions related to your dissertations. The first question is, what is the most important contribution of your study to other fields, yeah, and how will it contribute or add up to the existing body of knowledge? And I think also it is parallel in the first questions, because in your dissertations you apply it in the IT company. So my question is there any recommendation for other company characteristic that maybe you recommend to be implemented using 7S and also SSM? Please, Pak Ruby.
Okay, Bu, thank you so much for the question. Number one, what is the most important contribution in terms of body of knowledge? I'm a lover. I'm in love with assessment. Soft system methodology is something that I found out only after I'm with ITB, and I'm surprised such approach exists. Yeah, and the beauty of it is basically it acknowledges that being social life, we have different point of views, and we need to address those. So that's beautiful. And the methodology, basically, despite it's very difficult to understand, but once you understand, it's beautiful. Yeah. But the biggest issue with with Cheklan approach is basically because he decided to make it very flexible. He continued highlighted my SSM is a methodology, it's not a method. Yeah, that gives us flexibility, but also giving us loopholes. That some things are not too clear for us in terms of how we do it. Yeah, it gives us the freedom to actually do creativity in terms of doing it. Yeah, therefore, if you notice, there is a lot of new things that I'm introducing with SSM. As long as within the methodology. So what is the contribution that I'm providing? If you notice here, there are a lot of things that actually I'm introducing that can actually enrich the way we perform SSM. For instance, the way we extract issues. What I did is basically first do a desk research, yeah, and then afterwards do an interview, and then afterwards regroup them into workshop together, making rich picture, and then together we decide which issues are relevant that we can actually make it as a one single rich picture. So that itself contributes in terms of how we extract issues. Yeah, that's a self-help actually. It contributes in so people can actually reference it and use it. And then the way I'm introducing 7S as a checklist, that also contributes in the sense that now, especially because this is something coming from my experience, when I started doing SSM, despite I like it, I'm confused. I was stuck and confused. What justifies that I have already enough issues extracted and enough worldview extracted? Because I know this will be very important to make sure the whatever I'm proposing as HAS, human activity system, is actually workable. But then there is no guidance. Cheklan is only saying do iterative, and you will gradually discover everything. But then what is the benchmark? What is the standard? So 7S will help us actually to give the standard. So that is the contribution of body of language. But I'm open actually for everyone, any others, to actually do other than 7S. 7S is just a vehicle that I found because I've been using 7S in the past. And it's very fruitful, and it's proven actually helps to align organization. And I see the beauty of 7S, and I see the beauty of SSM is actually linked. It doesn't contradict between those two. It nicely links. It doesn't replace, 7S doesn't replace SSM. SSM doesn't replace 7S. It's a nicely fit. Yeah. So I think that's the major contribution that actually I'm providing. Hopefully with this, then the body of knowledge of SSM in terms of how we do things in better can be something that will improve the understanding of the social understanding. Yeah. I think that's the contribution. In terms of recommendation, yeah, I think it also the recommendation of 7S, yeah. Oke, Bu. Frozen ya, Bu Santi frozen.
Yeah. Maybe there are many problem connection.
Yes, Pak Ruby.
Oke.
Oh yeah, okay.
Oh, udah.
Okay, the second questions, I think it is my connection. Sorry. So what is your recommendation ya Pak ya for the possible future research in seeking the other methods of complementing the SSM? Because you said that 7S is complement with the SSM, but maybe you can make a recommendation what kind of the tools or methods complementing the SSM itself.
Now the SSM has a seven steps. Yeah, if you look at as the earlier approach of SSM into research learning, he's saying it's there 7 steps. Yeah, but if you notice, Jacqueline is heavily talking about the earlier steps, but he doesn't talk too much on the later step, especially the step number 7 when you start actually to do action. He doesn't talk about that too much. But when we use SSM as an action to improve in an organization, to them, the most important is number 7 actually. The action itself, that is the most important. The beginning part is crucial to make sure that we have a proper strategy, yeah, which is step 1 to step 6. It's proper for us to do, we needed to have a strategy, but the way we actually implement it, the change, it's still missing. Jacqueline doesn't talk too much about that. So actually, I'm recommending in the future, people should be thinking much more on stage 7. And what is ironically, a lot of people are actually doing research stop at stage 6. Why? Because Jacqueline doesn't talk much about step 7. And 7 is actually when I actually dealing with companies because I'm doing consulting, step 7 is the most important. Yeah. In my case, for instance, SSM step 1 to 6 is done on the first 1.5 months. The remaining 3 months is actually step 7. Now, how do we actually do this? Actually, on this case study, I'm also doing some new things also with the step 7. I introduced the Agile Scrum as a step 7 approach. Yeah, because that is something that step 7 can actually be beneficial with Agile Scrum. So I'm recommending in the future that people start to see other methods to help step 7 so that actually you can help something, the learning process there, yeah, the cycle of learning iterative also there, but it's actionable. And I'm suggesting actually to use that. It's just because of time constraint, I haven't actually discussed that in the dissertation, but it opens for other people actually to talk about it because Agile Scrum is very beautiful that nicely fit with SSM. I think that's the recommendation in the future, other than what I've mentioned in the dissertation.
Okay, so you recommend the Agile Scrum ya Pak ya as a methodology because I believe it offering some methods how to connect the multiple team as you said in the company, and then they need to work together to deliver the complex solution. So I believe that maybe in the future, so you can implement the Agile Scrum to especially how to look at the 7 stage, yeah, especially in the SSM to improve the actions improvement. Okay, thank you very much, Pak Ruby. I think that's all from me, Bu Ratna. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Ibu Santi Novani. And finally, we invite the Chief Promoter, Professor Dr. Insinyur Utomo Sarjono Putro MM, to deliver your question, please.
Okay, thank you, Chairwoman, Bu Professor Ratna, Pak Ruby, the Promovendus. As we know that SSM, the strength of SSM is first surfacing, yeah, many conflicting worldviews or interests, and then accommodating, yeah, the conflicting interests, yeah, then to develop some action. Then my question is, yeah, I have 2 questions. First, why surfacing, yeah, many conflicting interests is important in managing business and management, especially in your research topic, implementing TEM in Indonesia. Second, as we know, in paternalistic culture like Indonesia, surfacing conflict is something that many people in paternalistic culture is reluctant to deal with the conflicts. They try to avoid dealing with conflict because the problem will become more complex. They try to simplify the conflict situation into the simple one, by ignoring or avoiding the conflict. So how this approach is applicable in practice, in Indonesia, especially in Indonesia, who have which have the paternalistic culture. That's two questions. Thank you.
Thank you for the question. Number one is why surfacing money. Let me check. I think I have a slide that can really assist me to answer that. Sorry, the mouse is stopping me to share. Okay, Pak. When we talk about surfacing, there are two surfacing parts. First is surfacing issues, and the second one is surfacing worldviews. And both of them are very important. Once we surface sufficient issues, we are able to surface relevant worldviews. Relevant worldviews in regards to the issues. So therefore, the challenge is actually to make sure that we surface the issues. Now, why is it important? A lot of, let me just show you this slide. Worldviews. This is an instance. This is just an example. I'm putting an example of the real case happening with the ESCO. Among of the rich picture, there is one thing that everyone is actually referring to, which is there is a trend that the revenue from top 10% customers are declining. So the most important customer contribution revenue-wise is declining. And these customers are complaining. They are saying they are special, but the ESCO is not treating them special. So that is the issue. And based on that issue, I interview people what they think. And based on this, then I get to see what they are thinking of transformation. They think of what we need to transform and also their worldview. And this approach extracted me with many different worldviews. For instance, just take this one strategy here. All of them are agreeing. The reason why we have this problem is simply because we don't classify properly the customer, and we wrongly classify them. Because in the past the classification based on revenue only. And this is where I find a lot of conflicting worldviews. So when we start thinking of classifying, that we need to classify with a new approach. And this is the result at the end, the accommodative one. But before we come with this accommodative, people are saying differently. Some people are saying we need to categorize customer based on their contribution historically, how much they contribute. Then we need to put them as a big company, important company or not. The others is saying, no, we cannot look at how they contribute today, but we need to understand what is their budget size. If they are big budget, then they are important. If they are small budgets, then they are not important. The others is saying actually, no, it's not just a matter of budget, but how much of the share of wallet that we are getting from that budget is what counts. And some other is saying, no, we need to look at what are the prospects that we are having with them now. If we have a lot of prospects, they're important. If not, then they're not important. The other is saying that, oh no, we need to see how we are today very strong or not against competition, and so on and so forth. So there is a lot of point of view, and everyone is valid. Everyone is right in their sense. And if we don't settle this, if we decide to just take classification based on something else, not based on what accommodate is, then at the end, people will not support to the change because they think we are wrongly designing the organization approach. Yeah. So therefore, we need to accommodate these differences. So, extracting worldview, trying to get as much as possible and try to see as much about the conflict is very crucial. Because if we are not able to extract those, then we cannot find something that people can live with. So based on the discussion that we took some time, then everyone is actually agreeing this is the approach finally, which is the worldview that finally actually everyone can live with. So customer needs to be classified not based on existing revenue, but on the future potential business. So therefore, from this point of view, we see which one actually shows the future potential, and based on that, we are putting this as a classification of important customer or less important customer. So this is the accommodative approach. So therefore, answering your question part, surfacing worldviews and surfacing different point of views is very crucial for us to get something which is everyone can accept and everyone can support. And we need to allow them to speak up. Yeah, we need to allow them to actually talk about it, and based on that we discuss. And it goes to the second question: how we do about understanding Indonesia is a nation that is reluctant to do conflict. Now, we need to understand that Indonesia, you have Indonesia in common, and then you have Indonesia in an organization environment. If we are talking Indonesia in an organization environment, because I've been working with 8 different companies, mostly are becoming more democratic. People are freely to express their differences, and people are willing to actually accept and based on that make decisions. So the more established the company, the more they are more democratic and open for discussion, as long as they do it coldly, cold-headed, without temper, and simply showing the facts. Yeah, so everything has to be based on facts. If we talk about based on facts, then people can accept, okay, we are talking based on facts, not based on feeling or judgment. Yeah. So, so I think in the modern organization, it's not going to be a problem in Indonesia because people are already starting to be democratic. Yeah. So in that sense, it's not that issue. But it's going to be an issue if we are going to, for instance, a government institution. Yes, I think it might be an issue. Therefore, I think the approach has to be slightly different. We shouldn't be talking about debate. We should be talking in the sense of discussion. Yeah, and maybe a third party will help, which is in this case an external party, SSN, can be the one who actually extract and declare. And because it's someone outside the organization, people can accept more compared to if the one who extract is someone, their peers. If their peers is talking something bad, then people can conflict. Yeah, so people are reluctant. But if it is external, it's more acceptable. So I think this is something that we can actually use. So blame it on the third party, make the third party actually extract those findings, and then discuss, and then let them agree. Yeah. So I think that's the way we can actually do that.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome back.
Thank you to Chief Promoter. Ladies and gentlemen, we just finished the first session of dissertation defense. And then I will ask your person to give opportunity to graduate school to conduct evaluation meeting. Then I will suspend this session for about 30 minutes from